Makasosyolehiyang araw sa ating lahat. Allow me to first pay tribute to the 5 decades of sociology in Bicol University. Isang karangalan po na maging bahagi ng inyong pagdiriwang, lalo pat nakatuon ang inyong atensyon kung paanong ang inyong departamento ay makakapagbahagi sa buhay at lipunang ating kinabibilangan. Your theme, Sociology at 50, Transforming Lives and Communities Across Borders, truly represents the history, struggles, and tensions, but also meaningful victories that your department endured in the last 50 years and will face in the next 50 years. My intersection with your department through your faculty members goes back to more than 10 years of engagement through the Philippine Sociological Society and through my role as one of the technical committee members of the Commission of Higher Education CHED for sociology since 2010. I've always been fascinated with sociology as a profession. And so with the many fellow sociology teachers and researchers, as well as the many sociology students from the undergrad to masters to a very limited number of PhD sociology students with whom I had one or more encounters. Those encounters often lead to engagements until I find a sense of solidarity and shared collective disposition towards the goal of our science of society. I am not sure if you remembered the day you invited me to be part of your 11th founding anniversary of the College of Social Sciences and Philosophy last September 10, 2015, about 7 years ago, pre-pandemic times. You requested me to speak about trends, prospects, opportunities, and challenges for social sciences and philosophy in the Philippines, along with the ASEAN integration. And I responded by sharing with you a working paper entitled Paperless and Borderless Social Sciences and Philosophy in the Philippines, Why the Metaphor of Kulang or Lacking Matters. In that lecture, no pandemic was in sight. But after experiencing 2 years of pandemic, the message of why it matters to prepare for paperless and borderless social sciences became more of a reality than an ideal. I would have wanted to personally deliver the sharing before all of you, but our pandemic restrictions limited us to this Zoom-based virtual conference, and I opted to record this lecture first as a pro-action to the ailing internet connection we have in the country. However, this recorded sharing allows us the element of control and timelessness so that I could edit and simplify salient points and portions, as well as allow me to share this with you over and over again asynchronously. Meaning, to a certain degree, the COVID-19 pandemic also gave us the opportunities to engage virtually in ways we thought costly and impossible. But here we are. Our shared histories of the pandemic ushered new ways of thinking, reinventing, and sharing. Yet with or without the pandemic, there are still fundamental questions that we students of sociology in the Philippines and in the Global South need to respond to untangle, to resolve. Thus, in the occasion of the 50th foundation anniversary of the Department of Sociology in Bicol University, in line with your theme on transforming lives and communities across borders, allow me to tell you an academic behind-the-scene story. Alam ko po, mahilig tayo sa mga kwento. At ngayon, nauso ang maraming Marites, Marisol, Maricon, Marimar, at marami pang ibang uri ng tsismisan at kwentuhan na patok sa ating mga Pinoy. Para sa akin, tayong mga sosyologo, ay may natatanging konsepto na kailangan intindihin, hindi pagtsismisan, kundi sana maging buhay na diskurso sa lahat ng departamento ng sosyolohiya sa buong bansa At maging sa karatig ng mga bansang hanggang ngayon, waring lito pa rin sa epekto at impluwensya ng kolonyalismo sa ating kanya-kanyang bayan. This is about the concept of society, ang konsepto ng lipunan. Nasa mga sulatin ni Emile Durkheim, ang isang tanong na kanyang pilit na sinaliksik ay, how is society possible? Paanong nagaganap o nabubuo ang isang lipunan? This is problematizing lipunan in Araling Panlipunan, stories of how K-12 course community engagement, solidarity, and citizenship came to be. This was a byproduct of my years of engagement with the Department of Education and concurrent consultant with my role at the Commission on Higher Education years ago. So in context, I have been fascinated on how we teach sociology in tertiary education and realized that sociology as a course is always relatively unknown to many students. So we observed that there is an apparent disconnection between Araling Panlipunan and social sciences in the pre-K-12 times. The reason why we consultants were very much pleased with the task of really drawing clear connection between Araling Panlipunan under the Humanities and Social Sciences track we call UMS, with all social sciences degrees in colleges and universities, and this includes our profession, sociology. One of the courses included in the curriculum was Community Engagement, Solidarity, and Citizenship, we call CSC. I was with Dr. Rosetta Palma from UP, who wrote and designed the curriculum guide for this course. Personally, I was happy to be given this rare chance to practice sociology. You see, the type of sociology that is more engaging, more engaged sociology in designing something that may be practical, of practical worth to our country as we negotiate our ways to understanding who are we as a nation, what we are as a Filipino society. Ano ba tayo bilang isang lipunang Pilipino? Nararamdaman mo bang bahagi ka nito o sa pangalan lamang? So, there are plenty of studies on the history, state, and development of social studies, as well as studies in the social sciences. But we argue that studies on the relations between and among social studies and social sciences are wanting for both teaching and research. Para bang walang koneksyon ang Araling Panlipunan sa agham panlipunan sa ating sistemang edukasyon dito sa Pilipinas. Kaya ito ang naging focus ng aming pagsisiyasat. To what extent would community engagement and solidarity and citizenship provide an understanding of the fundamental question in the social sciences? How is society possible? Our purpose is to contribute to the limited yet significant discourse on lipunan, what it means and how this may be taught relative to the teaching of social studies and sciences in the country. Here we use AP Curricula Competence and the Civic Life Framework to guide our inquiry. Ms. Joanne Santiago, my advisee, took as her thesis this topic and helped in the analysis of this paper. The lens we use was male sociological imagination. We call Imagina Socio, a perspective where we see the interplay of biographies and those engaged in social studies and social sciences with the history of our educational system and nation. Methodologically, our approach was exploratory, descriptive. Our data were from archival sources, and our analytical technique as historical narrative and thematic analysis. So what did we find out? First, we learned that in 1970s, Kalingasan notes that the orientation of AP Araling Panlipunan was based on anthropology and sociology. However, teaching AP shifted focus on history, geography, and economics. The shift is relatively due to the claim that anthropology and sociology are subversive disciplines. Note that our country at that time was under martial law. So some sense of hope about reviving the interest in sociology was apparent in the K-12 curriculum, particularly on the inclusion of humanities and social sciences strand, HUMS. This is the track where AP is embedded for 2 years, grades 11 and 12. The core and the contextualized and specialized subjects for HUMS are infused with social science-oriented courses. These are culture, society, and politics, and specialized courses on disciplines and ideas in the social sciences and applied social sciences, as well as Philippine politics and governance, and the core interests of the sharing, community engagement, solidarity, and citizenship. So what about the curriculum guide of CSC? Our orientation is that CSC will be the culminating course as a subject of practical relevance and application, where students will be using the researches they did in the previous terms, and that they will showcase for one term their ability to engage in communities, organizations, and in any social institutions. In so doing, concepts and perspectives of community should be adequately introduced, its elements and typologies. This should lead to understanding community action, which take forms of engagement, solidarity, and citizenship. Sa Filipino, pakikilahok, pakikiisa, at pagkamamamayan. Sana matukoy ng mga estudyante ang issue ng mga nasa laylayan ng lipunan at gumalaw ayon sa mga makataong prinsipyo ng karapatang pantao, katarungan, pagbibigay lakas at kapangyarihan sa mga naghihikahos sa buhay at bukasya, pakikilahok sa proseso ng kaunlaran at patas na pagtingin sa karapatang pangkasarian. At hindi ito mabubuo kung hindi ituturo ang metodolohiya at lapit sa pag-organisa ng pamayanan mula sa pakikipag-ugnayan sa mga grupo, pananaliksik at pagtasa sa kanilang mga kailangan kung saan ang sentro ay pamayanan. How did CSC come about? Well, as early as 2013, we at SHED were asked by DepEd to develop courses. And by 2014, we drafted the CSC curriculum guide. The logic of the guide is to ensure that this course will definitely be beyond lecture and classroom based. Rather, the emphasis should be community research based, akin to service learning mode and extension modalities. And that I convened a team who started to work on producing book modules, but were unsuccessful because of the following reasons. DepEd has no clear regulatory power to review and evaluate reference materials. We also found publishers are really profit-driven, that most of the senior high subjects has limited prescribed references, and that there is really a need for good social science writers to take this challenge. So how do we envision a working module guidebook for CSC? Where we have hope that this multidisciplinary approach will be implemented. We aim those readings to be diverse and made of multi-typologies, and that the module and reference be inclusive, covering wide geographical representation. There is diversity of cultures, multidisciplinary, that sources enjoy high integrity, scientific and research-based, more Philippine-based than too westernized, and there are empirical basis for historical slant that is truthful to fact and not for revisionism. We wanted a teaching guide that led the senior high to journey understanding questions of communities, such as asking the question, what is community? And how is community experience? To also learn about the guiding principles of community engagements, and to introduce the best strategies to understand and document community issues and concerns. And for practical purposes, we ask the questions, what did students contribute to community action initiatives? How do this impact the lives of the stakeholders? And what did the students learn from community engagement? Thus, our vision in designing CSC to explore the diverse conceptual notions of communities and engagements, the many ways of understanding how solidarity are possible, and how citizenship remains as a challenging concept to teach in a school setting. But more important concerns, urgent insights, led us to point out the more important, urgent, observed lack of research-based Araling Panlipunan reference materials we found during our field work. In fact, we observed that AP or other related social sciences courses are given limited resources, as studying lipunan is not a priority compared to science, information, and technologies. More so, there is really a limited research training of AP teachers to teach and conduct research in social sciences for K-12 courses. We identified it as a key issue of concern in need of urgent and maybe political response. I can only dream that the Department of Sociology in Bicol University takes the challenge of producing CSC modules that are participatory, local, indigenized, gender-sensitive, community-based, and inclusive to help our Araling Panlipunan and social sciences teachers and faculty in DepEd and CHED higher educational institutions to design, to discourse, and to devolutionize knowledge from the center to local realities. So I end with an insight of what I think is the research vacuum. To what extent would CSC provide an understanding of the fundamental question in the social sciences, how is society possible? Paanong nagaganap o nabubuo ang isang lipunan? Para po sa akin, marami pa po tayong dapat tuklasin. This remains unknown. Kaya po, marami pang sosyolohiya ang dapat nating saliksikin at buuin upang sa susunod na 50 taon, masasabi natin, gamit ang imahinasosyo, makabuluhan nating mailalarawan ang ating pamayanan, ang ating lipunang Pilipinas na ating kinabibilangan. Diyos mabalos, pagbati po sa inyong anibersaryo. Maraming salamat po.